Good morning. I'm sitting here with some tea. You can kind of see the teacup, so it disappears. Anyway, I want to talk today about how the upcoming lunar month from April 8th to May 7th is going to affect countries and people. Yesterday, I did a video about how the lunar month will affect the world in general, but I want to look at specific people who are in countries who are going to be affected one way or another by the April 8th solar eclipse. So uh, let me take a look at things. Let me see if I can share my screen. And let's see. Here we go. And as usual, I just need to get rid of a few panels that I see on my screen so that I can see what I'm doing here. Just one more to go. And we're set. So we'll talk about the lunar month for countries and people. And I'm going to very quickly go over the horoscopes and some of the highlights for America, Biden, Trump, Israel, Netanyahu, Hamas, Iran, Putin, Russia, Ukraine, King Charles, Kate Middleton, United Kingdom, and Pope Francis. Quite a bit. Okay, so let's see. First, we have America. And here are its transits on April 8th. At the time of the great solar eclipse, where we have sun, moon, and Chiron all exactly conjunct at 19 degrees, 24 minutes in Aries. And this is in the seventh house, so it can have an impact on our relations with others, for instance, foreign countries. And this conjunction, among other things, you can see down here, it's pretty close to natal Chiron. I'm using the July 2nd, 1776 chart for the passage of the Declaration of Independence as my base chart for America. You could also use July 4th charts. You're going to get the same result. Uh, this conjunction is closely conjunct natal Chiron, and we're going to experience a Chiron return in this chart on April 20th, the same day as the Jupiter Uranus exact conjunction. Of course, America is going to go through two Chiron returns this year and one in early 2025. The second one is shortly after the November presidential election. So, this eclipse, it not only passes over a large portion of America, it resonates very strongly with these July 1776 charts for America. It's really activating Chiron, and the real impetus of Chiron is to get us to transcend the visible world, to go from the visible to the invisible, from what's plainly seen to what is not in front of our eyes, but is part of a larger reality. Chiron pushes us in that direction, but in the process of trying to get us to change, it can often cause some wounding. So Chiron can manifest as wounding, healing, or transcendence. And in America, there are going to be people who experience each of those things, or some in America will be wounded, some will heal, some will transcend. And historically, uh, Chiron returns, we had three Chiron returns in the early 70s, and that corresponded with political wounding. Uh, the big political wounding for the country was Watergate, President Nixon had to resign. Vice President Agnew had previously resigned over his own scandals. And now we're going through political wounding again as a result of the January 6th insurrection. And rather than President Nixon, it's former President Donald Trump that is on the hot seat for all of this. So, this political wounding uh, and issues surrounding January 6th and Donald Trump, that is probably going to dominate a lot of the year. Within government, we'll also see people who transcend, people who take the high road. There are some people in Congress who do that. There's some judges who do that. And that is what we hope will save our democracy. So it's going to be a year of wounding, healing, and transcendence for America and many individual Americans. Now, at the same time, in this July 2nd, 1776 chart for America, the Sun Pluto midpoint is at exactly 19 degrees 24 minutes. And with transiting Chiron conjunct that midpoint, there could be some kind of wounding to some of our leaders in the country or any person who is influential enough to lead others in this country. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. At the same time, the transiting lunar nodal axis, it's pretty closely conjunct with natal Saturn in this chart. So we still have some past karma to go through. We still have to meet and face the results of some of our past actions. Okay, so that in a nutshell is how this eclipse is going to affect America. Now, if we look at the transits for the entire lunar month, I'm showing transits for a full 2 months, April and May, but the lunar month, it starts about here at April 8th, ends about May 7th. And just looking at transits at a glance, you want to just quickly see, do I have more red boxes over here or blue boxes? And it's kind of split. So it's going to be a split between what's hard and what's easy. Now, let's just look over the red boxes real quickly. We have transiting Chiron conjunct natal Chiron. That becomes exact on April 20th. It affects America all this month and much of next month. Transiting North Node in opposition to natal Saturn, which means it's going to be the South Node that comes into conjunction with Saturn. And that specifically has to do with the past. That's going to be in effect for the entire lunar month and all of April and May. It becomes exact in the following lunar month on May 22nd. Uranus sesquiquadrate the ascendant. Well, Uranus breaks up the existing pattern. A sesquiquadrate, it can be a turning point or breaking point. It's kind of an irritation which can result in something breaking. So there's probably going to be some unrest in America, some little revolts or rebellions here and there, some revolution. And this is going to be in effect the entire lunar month. It's exact on April 24th. Now, if we're lucky, this is also going to manifest as it can be an irritation that can produce creativity. So we may see more scientific breakthroughs and innovation in America also this month. Okay, Neptune square Venus. That is going to be in effect the entire lunar month and gaining strength as we go past that. This can cause some unusual feelings and moods among the people, it can lead to some depression and misinformation, which in this political season, there will probably be a lot of it. Now, we also have Jupiter making a sesquiquadrate to us, the ascendant. That is going to actually magnify the impact of Uranus sesquiquadrate the ascendant in this chart. And then we have Jupiter and Uranus both making semi-squares to the midheaven. This could create some difficulties for the Biden administration or others who lead our country, let's say, uh, with Jupiter being conjunct Uranus. This could just be some unexpected things that happen, causing some changes in direction. So, those are the difficulties we face this month. The things that will be easy, we have Chiron making a sextile to Mars. That's exact on the 16th, lasts the entire lunar month. That's going to bring out the sweet side of Chiron, this very sweet transcendent energy. So some of the actions taken by our country are going to work out well. With Uranus making a trine to Neptune, a lot of people are going to have good feelings about things. And for others, they're going to have very creative inspirations. This becomes exact on April 30th. Also, Jupiter trine Neptune, that is exact on the 23rd. That is just going to expand the actions of Uranus. And then we have Jupiter making a sextile to Mercury and a trine to the Moon in this July 2nd chart. And that is going to probably help the economy and boost the optimism of people. This will be in effect roughly, let's say, during the last week of April through the first couple of weeks of May, and they become exact just a few days before the next new moon. Okay, now let's take a quick look at Biden and the solar eclipse. He has transiting Sun, Moon, Chiron in the fifth house, square his Saturn Chiron midpoint, which is up here in the eighth house. And let's see, then he also has transiting Pluto square his moon, and he's got Uranus in the sixth house opposite natal Mercury in the 12th house. And as I said, he has this particular midpoint activation. Okay, well, I set this up using Koch houses. In most of the other house systems, uh, Cancer is on the cusp of the eighth house. And in this one, the very last part of Gemini is on the cusp, but Cancer is wholly contained within the eighth house. That's the house of death and transformation, other people's money and possessions. And I'm mentioning that because Biden has the moon in the fifth house. It's being squared by Pluto. Pluto is going to be in a pretty close square for it for just about the entire year. It's this aspect is within 1 degree of orb for most of the year, 2 degrees of orb for I think probably the entire year or almost the entire year. With Pluto being connected with the eighth house of death and with health in general, that can be very ominous. But Biden is a master at turning astrological lemons into lemonade. He went through a lot of adversity earlier in life with uh, his first marriage, the death of his wife and a child, and an auto accident. and he's learned how to handle tough times. So he usually, I've seen him deal with a lot of very difficult transits without missing a beat. Uh, what I have seen in the past with this particular transit of Pluto square moon is often his children, specifically Hunter Biden, comes into the news. So that's one of the things we might see. And with the Sun Moon Chiron conjunction in his fifth house, uh, he may be wounded by things related to his son Hunter. Okay. There may be other things going on with Chiron squaring the Saturn Chiron midpoint. We do expect some sort of wounding and frustration and restriction to probably occur in his life. Uh, there may be something having to do not with children, not with death, but other people's money. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly this month and this year, I'm expecting Biden to be under a lot of pressure. Uh, and I hope he continues to handle it well as he has done in the past. And I hope he has many years of life ahead of him. Now, with Uranus in the sixth house in opposition to Mercury in the 12th house, at the very least, this excites his mind, excites his speech, and we may just get, at the very least, some more uh, gaffes as he speaks. He may trip over his words, stutter a bit more here and there. He could also have a lot of brilliant ideas. This could be very creative. Other possibilities, there could be some unexpected health issue that comes up. There could be something from hidden enemies that's always in association with the 12th house. So, variety of things that could happen here in response to this eclipse. Uh, this will probably set a stage not only for this lunar month, but also for the rest of the year. Now, if we look at transits, just comparing how much red to how much blue, it looks like there's going to be a lot more blue this month. Now, as far as the challenges go, he's got Pluto square moon, entire lunar month, all of April and May. We've talked about that. He has Uranus in opposition to Mercury. We've talked about that. That's going to be exact on the 15th of April. So keep an eye out for unexpected things or uh, misspoken statements or gaffes that he says, things like that. Or maybe a health issue. Uh, Jupiter will also be in opposition to Mercury for a couple of weeks. That's exact on the 19th. Saturn is making a semi-square to his moon. That is going to be from mid-April into early May, just about until the next new moon. That's exact on the 23rd. That is going to cause some minor irritation, frustration. Semi-squares like a sesquiquadrant, those are turning points or breaking points. Okay. Now, on the good side, he's going to have a lot of strength, a lot of charisma, and a lot of creativity. He's got Pluto trine his Uranus, Pluto trine his Neptune. That's creativity and charisma. Pluto sextile his ascendant. That's going to strengthen him. Neptune trine his Sun and Neptune trine his Venus. That's going to put a shine on him. make him look really good. Neptune trine Venus, that's going to be exact on April 18th. All of these last the entire lunar month. He has Uranus trine his midheaven. He's been having some political successes lately, and this has helped change his fortunes. Jupiter trine midheaven, that's going to be exact on April 12th. So this is a pretty good period for him. In the last week of April and on into May, he will have Jupiter, sextile Jupiter. That is going to give him some good luck. Okay, now let's take a look at Trump. Transiting Sun, Moon, Chiron, lunar nodes in 8th house, conjunct opposition and to natal Jupiter, Chiron, lunar nodes. Okay. Uh, let's see. Where is his natal? Let's see. Conjunct opposition. I should say just natal Jupiter, Chiron here, not his natal lunar nodes. That is way off over here. So just in your mind, erase lunar nodes right here. But basically, he has Sun, Moon, Chiron, and the lunar nodes affecting his natal Jupiter and Chiron. Now, Sun, Moon, and Chiron, they're moving past opposition to Jupiter here. So at most, that is a glancing blow. The transiting nodal axis, that is a stronger conjunction with this natal Chiron. That will intensify things and probably lead to some wounding. And it's worth noting that one of his criminal trials starts, I believe, on April 15th. I believe that is when jury selection is going to begin. Now, Sun, Moon, and Chiron, they're going to be in his 8th house, which has to do with other people's money. And that has been in the news a lot about how he is taking all these contributions that people make to his campaign to be reelected as president. Instead of using it for campaigning, he's using it to pay his legal bills. Some of his trials are about how he and his company have mishandled other people's money. So financial issues are going to be in the forefront for Trump this month, and probably issues involving his money and other people's money. Now, the thing about Chiron is he basically was born under a Jupiter-Chiron conjunction, which in this case has helped make him lucky. Jupiter brings out the sweet side of Chiron, a sweet transcendent energy. I would say that Trump has used that sweet energy for bad purposes, to charm people and sweet talk them into doing things they shouldn't do. Okay. Now we also have transiting Mercury square natal Venus and Saturn. Venus rules, let's see, his 10th house of status. The one area in which he has Saturn-like discipline has been in some aspects of his business, the way he orchestrates things, maneuvers things, delays on things when it comes to legal issues. Mercury in the 9th house is causing trouble for that. And among other things, the 9th house has to do with our system of justice, our sense of justice. And Mercury rules the the left brain, the verbal brain, it's communication. And one of the things we have seen happen recently with Trump is judges uh, putting uh, gag orders on Trump. Oh, by the way, I said Mercury is in the ninth house. That certainly is how it looks at first glance, but he has a lot of stuff going through the eighth house. You might see this little dotted line here. Mercury is at 24 degrees, 48 minutes of Aries. Uh, the ninth house begins at 26 degrees, 24 minutes of Aries. So Mercury is actually right at the end of the eighth house, but close to the cusp of the ninth house. So issues, probably uh, judicial issues, issues with other people's money, and things he says, and things uh, the courts don't want him to say. Uh, though we'll probably see that making even more of an impact this lunar month. Okay, now let's take a look at his transits for the rest of the month. He's got a lot of red, a little bit of blue. Some of the blue is going to help him. But let's see, what's in the red? Uh, let's see, North Node opposite Jupiter, North Node opposite Chiron. That's that lunar nodal axis in conjunction with his uh, Jupiter Chiron conjunction. The North Node is going to be in opposition to Chiron on May 13th, 17th. That's in the following lunar month. And it's going to be sesquiquadrate. His ascendant on May 12th. That's also in the next lunar month. But you can see the impact is throughout all of April and May. So that's intensifying things and can cause some more wounding. Okay, it'll be interesting if the trial, if he has a trial start on the 15th, and it'd be interesting if it ends in a month and we get a verdict at this time. Uranus sesquiquadrate Neptune, that was exact on April 1st. And let's see, I'm making this on the morning of April 2nd. One of the things that happened yesterday on April 1st, I believe, was his Truth Social business. The stock lost a lot of money, and they say this morning he lost $1 to $2 billion in his wealth. So Uranus is sudden change. Neptune is illusion. It seems like the whole value of that company is just an illusion. Pluto sesquiquadrate Uranus. Uranus is in his 10th house, which has to do with his status. Pluto is death and transformation. This is not overly strong at this point, but it's sort of gaining in strength for a while. In May, I believe Pluto will turn retrograde, so it's not going to become exact, but these are threats to his status. Jupiter sesquiquadrate Neptune, that's going to last for a bit over a week. It'll be exact on the 16th. This could exaggerate some lies, illusions, delusions, misinformation. Let's see. Down here, Saturn square Uranus. That is going to be exact on the 16th, roughly the same time that things going on with that transing lunar nodal axis are exact. And Saturn causes restriction. Uranus is in his 10th house, fame, status, professional status. So his status is going to be restricted one way or another. He's going to be frustrated. And this is going to go from, let's see, roughly last week of April and then get stronger in May and reach its peak in mid-May. Jupiter conjunct midheaven. All the conjunctions here are shown in red, but this is a good conjunction that will help expand his status. So last week of April, first week of May, this is exact on May 1st. There may be some good things that happen. Jupiter semi-square Mercury, you may speak too much. You may violate those gag orders. That's in last part of April, first part of May. Uranus conjunct midheaven, that can be a change in status. And that starts to gain strength throughout May. Jupiter square Mars. He has Mars conjunct his ascendant. Jupiter square Mars. Jupiter magnifies things. He's going to be even more angry. And this starts to take effect right before the next new moon, but lasts a couple of weeks and it peaks on the 12th of May. So those are the stresses. Now, the things that are going to go well, Chiron making a sextile to Uranus. Uranus is in his 10th house, so he's probably going to get some breaks during the first part of April. Okay. Need another sip of tea here. Chiron sextile his north node, which means it trines the south node. That is also going to provide some assistance. It's in effect throughout the entire lunar month, the entire 2 months. It becomes exact on May 2nd. This is going to bring in some of the healing or soothing side of Chiron. Chiron trine his moon. That's going to be in effect throughout the entire lunar month. Is exact on May 9th, right after the next new moon. This could represent the ability to use the sweet transcendent energy of Chiron to, as I say, sweet talk and help mesmerize the public, the people. So his followers will probably still follow him. Uranus sextile to Saturn last week of April through all of May becomes exact May 25th. That is going to be beneficial to his reputation, his status, as will Jupiter sextile Saturn, which is exact on April 29th. And in effect, the last week of April up uh, until the next new moon. And let's see, he has Jupiter making a sextile to Venus. That is going to be in effect through the first couple of weeks of May. It's exact on the next new moon on May 7th. Chiron sextile to the sun. That's that sweet side of Chiron again, the transcendent energy. It would be nice if he turns around, changes his ways, becomes enlightened during this period. It's a possibility, but I'm not going to bet any money on that. I'm not going to bet any money on Donald Trump changing his ways dramatically. But to those who follow him, to his followers, they're probably going to sense this as a more transcendent spiritual energy. They may see him even more as a Messiah figure sent by God. So he's going to have some troubles. A lot of them are going to peak in after this lunar month, around mid-May, but he also has some good aspects that are going to help him out. He'll experience both wounding and some healing, most likely. And in the latter part of April, early part of May, things may be looking good for him from these beneficial aspects that are going on. Okay, Now let's move to the Middle East and to Israel. A lot of stuff going on here regarding the eclipse. Let's see. Transiting Sun, Moon, Chiron are going to be in Israel's sixth house. That could represent adjustments that have to be made as a result of past actions. And uh, this eclipse, it's going to be opposite a Jupiter-Pluto midpoint in the 12th house. And it's going to be squaring lots of midpoints. Sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto. So, one way or another, this eclipse is going to impact Israel quite a bit. Uh, more problems with hidden or not so hidden enemies. Maybe problems with judiciary or with the religious far right. Uh, a lot of things going on that will affect uh, probably the people of Israel and people in power in Israel. Now, the other thing I want to mention is transiting Uranus is conjunct his natal sun and very strongly opposite natal Chiron. Uh, Israel has the Saturn Chiron opposition in its birth chart. When these two drives are integrated, the spiritual side of Chiron integrated with the soul of the nation, then Israel becomes a light unto the nations, its ancient historical mission. And that happens in academic areas, in science, and in the arts. Uh, in the government, political areas, we don't always see that happening. And that would be true pretty much for any government, any political body. Instead, we see more the pattern of Israel gets wounded, they wound others, others wound Israel, Israel wounds back, and it goes on and on forever. Okay, now uh, let me just take a look at the next slide, see if, yep, that's why I thought it would be. This aspect was in effect uh, on October 7th, 2023, when Israel was invaded by Hamas. It was in effect a week later uh, at the time of the October 14th, 2023 solar eclipse. In fact, if we look at the positions of the outer planets, everything except for Saturn, uh, which has moved quite a bit, but if we look at the other outer planets where they were on October 14th, 2023, the solar eclipse, the October 28th, 2023 lunar eclipse, the March 25th, 2024 lunar eclipse, the April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse, you can see all of these charts for the outer planets, they look exactly the same. Pluto has moved into early Aquarius, which is good and different. That puts more power in groups, either groups of people or alliances of nations or groups like NATO, United Nations. But still, the patterns are basically the same, which means we're dealing with the same issues that we had to deal with on October 7th when Hamas invaded Israel. So, months ago, I saw this possibility of the conflict in the Middle East possibly expanding, involving more countries, enlarging into a wider war. That is still a possibility. And yesterday, Israel targeted and bombed an Iranian consulate in Syria. And Syria, of course, has vowed revenge, said they will uh, retaliate at a time and place of their choosing. Uh, it's still possible that things like that could uh, cross a line and create a larger war in the Middle East. So we have to work hard with diplomacy and to avoid an expansion of that sort. And another possibility is instead of the war enlarging at this time, uh, with diplomatic skill, countries could take the higher road and confront these issues again, but doing it at the diplomatic table through talks and discussions rather than active warfare. So, uh, certainly Israel has to be safe from Hamas, but probably some restraint is needed at this time to keep it from becoming just an all-out war between even more players, more countries in the Middle East. Now, if we look at red squares versus blue squares, a lot more red for Israel this month. So what are some of the tensions? We got Neptune squared Jupiter, that can cause some misinformation. Neptune sesquiquadrant Pluto, Uranus opposition Chiron, that becomes exact on April the 13th. So keep an eye on what happens. Neptune semi-square the lunar nodal axis, that's exact on May 3rd. Jupiter semi-square Venus, Jupiter opposition Chiron. Okay, this lasts a few weeks, most of the lunar month in April. It's exact on April 18th. Uranus conjunct Sun. Okay, this will bring unexpected things. This is the Sun Chiron opposition is being stimulated throughout April and May. And Uranus conjunct Sun is going to be exact on May 22nd. So this can cause some unexpected changes for the nation. Jupiter conjunct Sun, that will be exact on the 28th. That usually brings luck, good fortune. Might do so this time, but with Uranus so close to Jupiter, Jupiter and Uranus are close to a conjunction now. This can also bring very unexpected things. Okay, now as far as the good stuff, North Node trine Saturn, that's going to help things. And that means that Saturn's making a sextile. Oh, interesting. Interesting. This is natal Saturn here. This is transiting Saturn. Saturn will be making a sextile to the North Node. So it's going to be a little easier for Israel to control things, for good or for bad. The sextile is exact on April 4th. Jupiter will sextile the midheaven. That's going to be in effect last few days of April through about the first couple of weeks of May, exact on the 4th. That is going to be beneficial for Israel's leadership. So that could benefit Netanyahu. Okay, and let's take a look at Netanyahu's chart. Let me have another sip of tea real quickly. Transiting Sun Moon Chiron in fifth house, opposite his natal moon. It's really strongly opposite his natal moon. Fifth house has to do with pleasure, recreation, and personal creativity, the things you want to do and like to do. Uh, moon is in the 11th house, which has to do with group creativity, working with others. Uh, and the moon rules Cancer, which is on the cusp of his 8th house, which is house of death, transformation, other people's money, possessions, and so forth. Okay, well, I expect that Netanyahu may be personally wounded in some way by this eclipse. There have been allegations of corruption in the past. There may be more information about that, which comes out if he has mishandled or misappropriated other people's money. This can also be something which affects his health. He did have surgery, I think, just the other day for a hernia. There may be other things going on. And this is going to be in opposition to some midpoints. His Sun Mercury midpoint, his Venus Mars midpoint. So he's being personally affected or wounded in some way or another by this eclipse, most likely. His transiting lunar nodal axis is conjunct the natal lunar nodal axis and Neptune as well. So uh, things are going to be a bit more intense in his life at this point, and he can be subject to delusions or misinformation, also inspirations. Uh, Saturn, transiting Saturn is in opposition to his natal Saturn. He is having to face the results of his past actions, his past karma, and he may feel restrictions put upon him one way or another at this particular point. So, Netanyahu is one of the many uh, people who will be strongly affected by this April 8th lunar eclipse. And keep a lookout for personal wounding, health problems, uh, issues related to other people's money, in the most extreme case, even death. I don't think that's going to happen, but I just put it out there as one of the possibilities. And if we look at his balance of red and green, I think he has a bit more red here. Chiron opposition to his moon, that is exact on April 4th. Close to the operation he just had. So there's some health concerns, some wounding. The lunar nodal axis activating his natal lunar nodal axis in Neptune, particularly Neptune, that gets stronger throughout the month. It's exact on April 29th and May 3rd. Saturn in opposition to natal Saturn, that is going to be exact on April 17th and pretty much in play throughout this entire lunar month. Jupiter, semi-square Uranus, unexpected events in his life. That'll be in the first week of this lunar month, about the second week of April. Jupiter sesquiquadrant Mercury, square his Mars. Let's see where his natal Mars is. Go back a second here. Okay, that's in his ninth house. That could affect travel, other things, but he could be a little bit more accident prone for, or act a little bit more rashly during this period and first part of May. On the good side, he has Uranus conjunct his midheaven. That is going to help him stay in power. Jupiter trine his midheaven, Jupiter trine Jupiter, Uranus trine Jupiter. He's going to have some problems, but he's also going to have a lot of luck on his side. So, politically, I suspect he will probably be okay this coming lunar month in spite of protests going on. And you can see when these aspects will be strongest. April 30th, April 23rd, Jupiter trine. Jupiter, that is also going to be in effect on April 30th. That might turn out to be a good day for him, in spite of this opposition with the lunar nodes being exact on the 29th. Uranus trine Jupiter, that's going to be exact in the next lunar month. On May 28th, it will be exact. Now, if we take a look at Hamas, let me get another sip of tea here. It's also going to be strongly impacted by the eclipse. Sun, Moon, and transiting Chiron are very strongly conjunct. Natal Jupiter in the first house, so Hamas is probably going to have its luck impaired. It also has transiting Neptune conjunct this lunar nodal axis and making a square to natal Chiron. So that is probably going to cause even more wounding. And the transiting lunar nodal axis is strongly square, is natal Venus. So that intensifies things. Venus, think of it as the right brain. Hamas is not going to like what is going on. It's going to have intense feelings about things. It's going to experience reversals of its luck and a lot of wounding. Okay, voice is starting to go. Have another sip of tea. More red here than blue for Hamas. Let me go over this quickly. Chiron conjunct Jupiter lasts the entire lunar month, exact on the 15th. North node square Venus. That's exact on May 8th. Pluto semi-square the sun. That makes things difficult, but doesn't get real strong right now. And Pluto turning retrograde in May, that's going to start to lessen things. And let's see, Neptune in opposition or conjunction with North Node, that's exact on the 18th. That intensifies some things. Neptune squaring Chiron, that's fading right now. Okay, let me take more tea, see if I can clear up my voice a bit. Okay, Uranus sesquiquadrant Neptune, exact on the 23rd. Some unexpected things happening. Neptune, delusion, fanaticism. Neptune sesquiquadrant Moon, fanaticism, misinformation rules the day. Max, in effect for several weeks, becomes exact on the 23rd. Jupiter sesquiquadrant Neptune. We have a lot of things going on with Neptune creating fanaticism, misinformation. Saturn square the sun. That makes things harder, frustrates things. That is going to be effect throughout the last week of April, throughout all of May, becomes exact on May 15th. So a lot of things are going to be hard this month for Hamas, a lot of wounding. It has some good things going on. It's still experiencing transiting Chiron trine Sun. That lasts till mid-April. Uranus sextile the ascendant, Saturn sextile Venus. That endures throughout the lunar month. Jupiter sextile the ascendant, and down here, Chiron trine Saturn. In spite of all the hardships, I think Hamas will probably also get some assistance from others. I imagine that will also continue to get some support and finances from Iran. A lot of the aid and resources that we're trying to get into Gaza, a good portion of that may fall in the hands of Hamas and wind up benefiting them more than it does the general public. So those are all possibilities. Now, if we look at Iran, it's going to be very strongly affected by the solar eclipse because Sun, Moon, and Chiron at 19 degrees 24 minutes, Aries very strongly opposite their Pluto at 19 degrees 6 minutes of Libra. You might say the health of the country, workers are going to be affected. And this is also opposite the Venus Jupiter midpoint. So, probably the people of Iran are going to be affected, their ability to enjoy life, expand uh, their state in life. That is probably going to be wounded quite a bit. There's a lot that's going to be going on with Iran during this eclipse and this month, but Iran is somewhat of a closed society in many ways. And so we may not know everything that is happening. Not everything going on may make the news. Oh, this conjunction at the solar eclipse, it's also square this Mars Neptune midpoint. So feelings of aggression and fanaticism, they're going to be fanned. And as a result of Israel bombing that consulate that Iran had in Syria, uh, there may be calls for war among those in political power in Iran or among calls from a lot of the people. Now, adding fuel to that fire is transiting Mars in opposition to Saturn. That that combines the assertiveness, the aggression of Mars with the the frustrations, the restrictions of Saturn, and that can create an explosive situation. Now we also have transiting Pluto opposite natal Jupiter, and that can represent a lot of hardships on the people since Jupiter is in the fourth house representing the people in the homeland. Uh, this Pluto's in the 10th house of authority. This could be a crackdown of some sort by political leaders. Transiting Jupiter and Uranus are in opposition to natal Uranus. Transiting Jupiter and Uranus in the first house, natal Uranus in the seventh house. That has to do with other countries here. Uranus is unexpected things, so there could be some unexpected changes in direction in its relationship with other countries. So the chart for Iran on the solar eclipse does not look good. At its heart, I believe Iran wants to avoid getting dragged into this war between Hamas and Gaza because it knows in the long run that it could suffer more than it gains. But there are going to be people in Iran who are upset or probably calling for a jihad, a religious war against Israel, and things could change at any minute. Well, let's hope that diplomacy works. Okay, if we compare the red squares with the blue squares, we see a lot more red this month. And part of what's going on here, we have Chiron opposition Pluto. That lasts quite a while. That's exact on the 3rd. And as I said yesterday, uh, Iran or Israel bombed that Iranian consulate in Syria. And we'll have to see when, where, and how Iran retaliates for that. Pluto opposite Jupiter, that's in effect strongly throughout all of April and May. Pluto sesquiquadrate, the North Node, that intensifies things. Neptune sesquiquadrate Moon, that's exact on the 3rd. So that's the fanaticism. And we got Uranus square Sun. That's exact on the 22nd. Let me go back here. The Sun, that is on the 10th house, close to the cusp of the 11th house. This could be some sudden change in leadership or some sudden action by leadership in Iran. Uranus sesquiquadrate Venus, it's the right brain in charge here, and Uranus's unexpected actions or decisions. That's exact on the 15th. And then we have this transing Uranus opposite natal Uranus. That is also exact on the 3rd. So we have some strong tensions here on the 3rd. And this all may be related to reactions to the bombing of that Iranian consulate in Syria. Let's see, we have Jupiter opposite Uranus, exact on the 16th, squaring the Sun exactly on April 21st. Uranus squaring Mercury. There's a lot of things going on with Uranus, which are stirring the pot, stirring the pot. Things going on with Neptune, which probably will manifest as fanaticism in Iran. Things going on with Chiron, which could be wounding. Okay, we have Jupiter sesquiquadrate Venus, that is exact on the 19th. Saturn opposite the North Node, that's exact on May 12th. Jupiter square Mercury, exact on the 28th. Saturn sesquiquadrate Jupiter on May 2nd. That is going to restrict Iran's luck. That's all effect from last week of April through the first 2 weeks of May. Chiron square the midheaven. That starts to build as we get closer to the next new moon and strengthens throughout May. This could be some sort of wounding to Iran's leadership. So expect expect the unexpected. Unexpected events, sudden changes in direction in Iran, some fanaticism, probably some war drums beating as a result of wounding. There's a lot of stuff that could happen with Iran this month, a lot of stuff that could go wrong if players in the Middle East don't restrain themselves somewhat. Now, on the good side, Chiron is trine Neptune. That is going to be strong throughout the lunar month. Exact on April 19th, that is going to help bring some healing, bring out the sweeter side of Chiron. The North Node sextile Mars, that may alleviate some of those tensions tending toward war. Let's see what we have here. We have transiting Uranus, making looks like a trine to the midheaven. So that is going to be good for the leadership of Iran. Jupiter will trine the midheaven for a few weeks. The trine from Uranus lasts all of April and May. And transiting Chiron will be sextiling that sun in the 10th house. So while there will be some difficulties for Iran's leadership, they may survive, weather these difficulties. But there's going to be a lot of pressure for taking some sudden action, and the results may be disastrous. But particularly with Sun, Moon, and Chiron opposite natal Pluto on this eclipse, there is a great danger of Iran being drawn into the conflict between Israel and Hamas, and then this could expand into a wider, more difficult to control war in the Middle East. And remember, in addition to this opposition, there are also these midpoint activations going on too. Okay, now let's move to Russia and Putin. When it comes to Russia and Putin, that is even more of a closed society than Iran. And with Putin strongly in charge as a dictator, there can be things that happen, feelings people have that we don't hear about. Nonetheless, even if we don't hear about them, there's a lot of ways in which this eclipse is going to impact Putin. Let me read this note down here first. There's some controversy regarding Putin's birth data, but I've seen this chart that most people use work quite well. And the birth data has been personally confirmed by Putin's webmaster. So I feel like this is a valid chart for Putin's birth, even though there are some other sources that give different dates or times or places. But assuming this is correct, what do we have? Sun, Moon, and Chiron are conjunct in Putin's sixth house. There could be health issues. There are certainly lots of rumors. He's looking pretty healthy now, but in the past year, he's at times looked rather shaky. This will be an opposition to his sun, Saturn, Neptune, and Mercury in the 12th house. Now, Russia has a history of being strongly impacted by Saturn-Neptune conjunctions. It always has a big change of direction when transiting Saturn and transiting Neptune are conjunct. The next conjunction takes place in February of 2026. But Putin was born under a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. It's interesting, when he took power, he changed Russia's political direction. Russia was moving toward becoming a democracy. He made it a strong dictatorship again. And even though this is not exactly conjunct Saturn or Neptune, it's going to be, or opposite it, it's going to be strongly opposite several midpoints, including his Sun Mercury midpoint. So the eclipse will impact him very personally, his Mercury Saturn midpoint. This could cause frustrations, and it's strongly opposite the midpoint between his Saturn and Neptune. So there's a good chance that this year we may see the tide turn for Putin in some ways. This could come from health problems, from hidden enemies, or maybe some other sources. Now, he also has transiting Jupiter and Uranus. That's conjunct his natal Jupiter and square, uh, let's see, his natal Pluto, midheaven, and this lunar nodal axis. There are pressures for a change in Putin's status. Uh, this is coming from others. It could be from other countries or other people or leaders that he has to work with. But there is pressure for change. The last time uh, that Uranus was getting close to a square to his midheaven, that was in summer of 2023 when Prigozhin was challenging Putin's leadership. So Putin has a firm grip on power. He may be able to ride these things out, but there are pressures from various sources for change in his status. So that is impacting him too. He also has transiting Neptune, squaring natal Mars pretty strongly on this day. These can be delusions and misinformation which manifest as aggressive action on Putin's part. So, bottom line is Putin is going to be strongly impacted by the solar eclipse. Look for some wounding of some sort to Putin, possibly health problems, hidden enemies, pressure for change in his status. Okay. Now, if we look at his transits for the month, a lot more red than blue. Uh, Chiron squaring his Uranus, the lunar nodal axis in opposition to Sun and Saturn, Pluto squaring his ascendant. It's not going to become exact yet, but this uh, it's going to be a while before it does become exact because Pluto will turn retrograde, but over the next few years, expect some sort of big change or transformation in Putin's life. Neptune squaring Mars, making him more fanatical. Uranus conjunct his Jupiter, sudden changes in luck. Uranus squaring his Pluto, squaring his North Node, squaring his midheaven. Uranus square Pluto, that's exact on May 6th. Uranus square midheaven, that's exact on April 10th. That's coming up, so uh, keep an eye on what happens in the news with Putin. Jupiter conjunct his natal Jupiter. Like I said, all the conjunctions go down as red bar, but that's more a beneficial thing. But with Uranus also conjunct Jupiter, it could be unexpected things that happen. Chiron opposition Neptune, that is going to be in effect throughout the lunar month. It's exact on May 9th. Let me go back here, take a look at this chart. Yeah, things involving this eclipse, they're going to unfold as these planets come into opposition with this Neptune, and then later on with this Mercury. Okay, so that's where we might see some mysterious illness, assassination attempts, or other kinds of troubles. Jupiter square North Node will intensify things, so that's in effect pretty much now through third week of April, exact on the 12th. Uranus sesquiquadrate Chiron. That's interesting. In fact, throughout the entire lunar month, exact on the 25th, could be some unexpected wounding of some sort. Jupiter will make a square to his midheaven to Pluto, sesquiquadrate to Chiron. This could impact his status and his health. Some sort of wounding, politically, physically, otherwise. Okay, now the good stuff. What there is Chiron sextile to the North Node. That'll release some of that tension with Chiron. Pluto trine his moon. That is going to strengthen his health. Jupiter sextile Uranus. That is going to stimulate his creativity, his growth, and luck. Chiron trine the midheaven, so he may survive. There are pressures for change, but this brings the sweet side of Chiron to his status in society. And that's going to be in effect throughout the entire lunar month, exact on May 11th. And then we have Saturn trining his Uranus. That is going to be in effect mainly in May, exact on the 24th. That can, let's see, Uranus, I believe, is, where is Uranus? Oh, it's in his ninth house. But that could bring unexpected uh, good fortune to him, help stabilize things. Chiron trine his Pluto. Uh, that will help him stabilize his power. Pluto is here in his 10th house. So there's a lot of challenges, but again, as with some other people, he might be able to weather them this month. But there are certainly things to keep an eye on. See what happens around April 10th when Uranus is making that exact square to his midheaven. See if there are any more challenges to his power. There may be, and we may not hear them because it's a closed society, but we'll see. Now, if we look at Russia's chart and how it's being impacted by this eclipse, transiting Sun, Moon, Chiron are in the 10th house, opposite the Venus Jupiter midpoint pretty strongly. Okay, the 10th house, this is the people in power, Putin, Russia's leadership. It's harming the people. It's wounding the people. They are not able to enjoy life. They're not able to experience growth in their lives. So this will probably cause some dissatisfaction among the people. Transiting Uranus opposite natal Pluto and Venus. Okay, now Pluto in Russia's chart, at this point in time, it represents Putin. Because let's see, if we go back to Putin's chart real quick, he has Scorpio rising. And the ruler of Scorpio is Pluto. It's in his 10th house. So he has this very ruthless power. He has Sun and several planets in Libra, so he can come across as this nice guy, very pleasant uh, personality. He has Moon in Gemini. He's a good talker, very affable. But uh, Sun, Saturn, Neptune, Mercury, all these planets are in 12th house. So he also has a very hidden side. He spent a lot of his life in the shadows working for the KGB. And even though in person he appears very pleasant, very nice, he can be very, very ruthless. That's the Scorpio rising Pluto in the 10th house. So Pluto in Russia's chart right now represents Putin. Uranus, opposition, Pluto and Venus. These are again pushes for a change in leadership. Okay. Now, Saturn opposite Jupiter during this eclipse in Russia's chart. It's having its luck, its growth impaired and restricted by Saturn. And transing Pluto is conjunct the descendant and opposite the ascendant. So this is pressure from others, particularly pressure from other countries, impacting Russia a lot. So at least the people are probably suffering under these sanctions and under Putin. He seems to have a lot of support. Uh, and if so, a lot of that may be due to the fact that Putin controls the information flow in a lot of Russia. But there are also probably more dissatisfactions with circumstances in Russia with the hardships that the people are having to undergo. And there may be more pressure both within and from without for a change in direction or leadership. Okay. If we look at transits for this lunar month, again, more red than blue for Russia. Neptune's North Node square Neptune, Pluto opposite ascendant. We've talked about that one. Uranus opposite Venus, Uranus opposite Pluto. We've talked about that. Those will be exact on May 7th, and this one on April 21st. So keep an eye on Russia around this time in April. Saturn opposite Jupiter. That is going to be exact on April 9th, right after the solar eclipse. So keep an eye on Russia for the next week or two. Jupiter opposite Pluto. That is exact on the 21st. Saturn sesquiquadrant the ascendant. That's exact on the 25th. Jupiter opposite Venus is exact on the 24th. So period of frustration, restrictions for Russia, probably at this point. Jupiter sesquiquadrant the North Node. That's going to be about the first week in May. It's in effect. On the good side, Chiron trine Mars. That's exact on April 3rd, tomorrow. So this is maybe some healing energy of some sort going on for Russia. Pluto sextile the midheaven. That is going to benefit Russia's leaders. That's strongly in effect throughout all of April and May. So leadership may hang on. Saturn sextile Uranus. That's in effect first couple of weeks of April. This is structures, building, and harmony with creativity. Saturn sextile Neptune. That is also in effect throughout the entire lunar month, exact on the 23rd. This could represent, as I would describe it, Russia's ability to control the misinformation. This can add some allure, some charisma to powers that be in Russia. Let's see, natal Neptune, that is, let's see, it's in the 6th house. It looks close to the 7th house cusp here, but it actually isn't. It's about 15, 16 degrees away, about 15 degrees away. And what does Neptune rule here? It rules Pisces, which is 9th house. So this means Russia may have some constructive relationships with some other countries or with its labor force, its workers. So uh, there are going to be pressures for change in Russia. Leadership may hold on. They will also have a bit of luck, a few breaks this month, but still ongoing pressure probably from within and without for changes in Russia. If we look at Ukraine, it's not going to be so directly affected by the solar eclipse in terms of aspects to planets or midpoints. The eclipse conjunction is in the fourth house. That's affecting the people, the homeland. We do have transiting Pluto, conjunct natal Saturn, in opposition to natal Chiron, which is in the seventh house, having to do with other countries, other peoples. Now, this is not going to, I don't, well, this has been exact recently, will become exact again when Pluto turns retrograde. It's not going to reach exact opposition to Chiron now because Pluto does turn retrograde. But this natal Saturn Chiron opposition, it's going to be repeatedly stimulated and activated for the next few years. That does not bode well at all for Ukraine. This suggests more frustration, more wounding going on for the next 2 or 3 years. So it's not at all a good sign. Now, transing Uranus will be square the natal moon. Uh, this is going to be sudden changes that are going to affect the people uh, in Ukraine. And transiting Saturn, this is one good thing. It's going to be making a sextile to natal Neptune, which is in the first house. So there may eventually be some relief to Ukraine. They may get some of the supplies, some of the infrastructure that they need at this point. But the bottom line with this eclipse chart is probably more wounding for the homeland and the people. And with Pluto activating the Saturn Chiron opposition for the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be some ongoing destruction, frustration, and wounding for Ukraine, I'm afraid. It's possible that this conflict could end earlier, but I think it will end later, unfortunately. If we compare blue to red here, we see a lot more red squares than blue squares or rectangles. We have Chiron squaring the nodal axis. The nodal axis sesquiquadrate the Sun, squaring Neptune. Pluto conjunct Saturn. Won't be exact conjunction in April or May, but it's very strong. Pluto squaring Chiron. It doesn't get super strong yet. Neptune sesquiquadrate midheaven, that can affect leadership. That's exact on April 5th. Uranus square moon, sudden changes to the people. That is exact on April 26th, so keep an eye out for that date in Ukraine. Jupiter opposition Pluto, that was exact. That's exact today, so I'll have check news for Ukraine. Jupiter square moon, exact on 22nd. Saturn, semi-square Saturn. This is going to cause delays, frustrations for Ukraine, and latter half of April, early part of May. That is going to be exact on the 29th. Then we have Jupiter squaring Mercury, squaring Jupiter, sesquiquadrate Uranus. Uranus sesquiquadrate the ascendant. That Last one takes effect in May. Looks like it's exact on the 23rd. These others make an impact in May. These two Jupiter squares are exact on May 8th, right after the next new moon. Jupiter sesquiquadrate Uranus on the 4th. Okay, so a lot of ongoing tensions. Things that'll help. Saturn sextile Neptune, that's exact on April 6th. They may get some aid that they need. Jupiter trine the North Node, that will relieve some of the pressure. Chiron sextile the Sun, uh, that's in fact latter part of April and all of May. People may get some healing from some source. Saturn trine Pluto, latter part of April and all of May, exact on the 14th. That may be more goods and supplies that Ukraine needs. Jupiter trine Mars, that's good for military victories. Last week of April, first week or two of May, exact on the 4th. Saturn sextile the North Node, active mostly in May, and that could relieve some of the pressure, some of the tension. Okay, now we move on to the British royal family. And let me take another sip of tea. I saw months ago, that Charles may be wounded in some way as we approach this solar eclipse. And I mentioned that in a video I did last November. And this solar eclipse is affecting King Charles III and the United Kingdom, and also Kate Middleton, Princess Kate, Princess of Wales. So let's take a look here real quickly. Transiting Sun, Moon, Chiron are in King Charles's 10th house. Opposite is Mars, Pluto, midpoint. So his position uh, as a royal is being affected at this time. If we look at some of the basic meanings for Chiron, Mars, and Pluto, there's several different ways this can manifest. But one way in particular is wounding, surgery, cancer. And that is what we're seeing right here. He has transiting Pluto square his natal moon in the 10th house. This represents transformations to either his health or his status. Now, this is past exact. Uh, it was exact, I think, closer to his cancer diagnosis. Pluto will turn retrograde and go back over, make this exact square again before too long. And then in late fall, it will move direct, leave Cancer, go back into Aries. It will make an exact square again. So most likely this Cancer problem is going to be with them throughout the year. Transiting lunar nodal axis conjunct. Let's see. It says natal Neptune, Venus, in the 4th house. This lunar nodal axis, a transiting one, is stimulating his Venus Neptune conjunction in the 4th house. This is intensifying his dreams, his visions, things he wants to do, the things that he enjoys. That could work out good or it could work out bad for him right now. But it puts an emphasis on family and on the people of the country. transiting Neptune, let's see, is squaring his natal Uranus, his natal Jupiter. So things that are rather shadowy or ill-defined are affecting his luck, his ability to grow, and bringing about some sudden changes in his life and in his relationships with others. Uranus rules seventh house of marriage and other sorts of relations. And Uranus is in the 11th house, the things he wants to accomplish uh, in terms of group creativity, working with friends and other people. Okay, so again, he's being strongly impacted uh, by this eclipse. Uh, Things related to a strong eclipse like this, they can come into view a few months before the eclipse and affect things several months after the actual eclipse takes place. This chart is for the day on which his cancer diagnosis was announced. And if you look at this, you see Chiron is very strongly opposite his Venus Neptune midpoint and his Saturn Chiron midpoint. So wounding took place here. It restricted his actions and it wounded his vision and the things he wants to accomplish. Now, there's some other things going on here. Uh, Transing Venus was square his natal Venus at this point. That acts as a trigger. Transiting Saturn is just past opposition to his natal Saturn. Okay, so this is a time of judgment and somberness and frustrations, having to uh, pay the piper perhaps for past actions or past karma. Sun is in opposition to his natal Pluto very strongly. This is acting as a trigger point for this cancer diagnosis. And Pluto is very strongly square his natal moon. It's just, the square is just past exactness. Pluto at 0 degrees, 30 minutes of Aquarius, past opposite moon at 0 degrees, 26 minutes of Taurus. So this is just right after the cancer diagnosis and when it was announced to the public on this day. For the lunar month, Charles has a lot more challenges than easy things going on. The nodal axis is intensifying his actions of his Venus and Neptune, maybe restricting his joy, his vision for the future. Pluto squaring his moon, transing Neptune, squaring Jupiter and Uranus. We've talked about that. That's in effect all month. Uranus opposite his sun, that's going to be sun changes. And direction that becomes exact on May 1st. So this is active throughout all of April and May, throughout the entire lunar month. There are going to be some changes probably in his life. So watch the news. Chiron, making a sesquiquadrate to Saturn. That's going to cause probably some wounding. That's exact on the 23rd. Saturn semi-square his moon. That will restrict him personally. That's exact on the 17th. Jupiter opposite Sun. That's usually not too bad, but Jupiter magnifies things. And the fact that that's exact on the 23rd, where when Chiron is exactly sesquiquadrate Saturn, we want to keep an eye on that. Now, the good things involve, there aren't many, but they involve Chiron. Chiron trine Mars, That's going to bring in more healing energy to his body. That's exact on May 5th. Oops. North Node trine Pluto. That will help us strengthen him. Let's see where Pluto is in his chart. It's in the first house. So, yeah, that will personally strengthen him. And Neptune trine Chiron, that's exact on the 9th. That can bring in more healing, maybe from the chemotherapy or other medications he's taking. So he's got a lot of challenges. He has a few good things going on, but they're all very strong and very good. Now, Kate Middleton, she has also been diagnosed with cancer. Uh, she has a lot of stresses at the time of the April 8th solar eclipse. The good news is she's young, she's strong, and so I think there's a good chance she'll endure. But look at what's going on. Uh, Transiting Sun, Moon, and Chiron are going to be strongly squaring her Sun at 19 degrees Capricorn, her Moon at 18 degrees Cancer. So she is being very personally affected and wounding by things and by this cancer diagnosis. This is in opposition to her Saturn at 21 degrees of Libra. So this is causing restrictions in her life. Transiting Jupiter and Uranus in her 10th house, they are conjunct her natal Chiron. So, yes, she's being wounded. Uh, they're both past exact, but they were probably exact closer to the time of her operation and her cancer diagnosis. And this conjunction is squaring her ascendant. So this is all affecting her very personally, and her status as a royal is being affected. Uh, she's having to drop out of the limelight for a while for healing. And uh, the Sun Moon Chiron conjunction, it is conjunct her uh, Sun Moon midpoint, affecting her very personally. And it's in opposition to her Mars Pluto midpoint. And who else had an opposition to their Mars Pluto midpoint by Chiron? That was King Charles III. They're both going through the same thing: wounding, surgery, cancer. Amazing. Okay. Uh, Princess Kate has some red squares. She also has a lot of blue squares. So she's being wounded, but I think she's going to prevail. And let me go through this quickly because this is getting all pretty long. Uh, Chiron squaring her sun exact on April 5th, squaring her moon. Uranus square her ascendant. Uh, Not exact, but in effect throughout a lot of April. Jupiter conjunct her Chiron, that can be a good thing. That's exact on the 3rd. Jupiter square her ascendant. That's exact on the 12th. Chiron opposite her Saturn. That's not a good thing. That will be in effect from about mid-April through all of May. It's exact on the May 22nd. Chiron squaring her nodal axis intensifies things that will be make an impact mostly in May. Jupiter sesquiquadrate Mars. That could manifest as more surgery or other things. That's exact on May 6th. On the good side, Chiron making a strong square to her ascendant. That will help bring healing. That's exact on April 18th. Pluto sextile Uranus. That's good for her status. Since I think her Uranus, well, let's see, where is Uranus? It's not in the 10th house. Transiting Uranus is, but that's in her fourth house, so that's good for her home life. Uranus sextile the nodal axis. That's good for creativity, and that's exact on May 1st. Jupiter trine her sun, sextile her moon. That's very good. The next few weeks will strengthen her probably quite a bit. Jupiter sextile her north node. That's in effect through the second half of April, exact on the 23rd. Again, that will boost her luck. Saturn sextile Chiron, that will help with healing. That's in effect last week of April, all of May, exact on the 19th. Let's see, then we have Saturn trine her moon, that will strengthen her constitution, and that's in May. So in May and into the next lunar month, Chiron opposite Saturn can wound her, but around that same time, transing Saturn sextile natal Chiron and transing Saturn trine natal moon can help heal her and strengthen her. So I suspect she's going to have difficulties ahead with cancer and chemotherapy. In the long run, I hope she prevails. She has some things that'll strengthen her for now, as well as wound her. If we look at the United Kingdom, transing Sun, Moon, Chiron, in the seventh house, square natal moon in the 10th house. This could be, this is what also told me there could be wounding to leaders in the United Kingdom. Could be political, could be the royal family. We're seeing the royal family impacted a lot. And this conjunction here, it's going to be square the Pluto Chiron midpoint, so wounding of people with power in the United Kingdom. Transing Pluto is also opposite this 10th house Jupiter. Again, transformation and leadership, that political people, the royal family, or other people with power. Transing lunar nodal axis, conjunct the natal lunar nodal axis, very intense time for the United Kingdom. And let's see, we have more red squares than blue squares at this time. I'm not going to read through all of them because this is getting pretty long, but there are things you can pause it and take a look at them. If you're an astrologer, which I assume you might be, you can interpret them. If not, you can ask Chat GPT or one of the artificial intelligence bots to interpret them. We've got Chiron squaring the moon, Chiron sesquiquadrant natal Chiron, a lot of wounding going on. Pluto semi-square Mercury, Pluto opposite Jupiter, luck being impaired, Jupiter opposite Neptune, Uranus, sesquiquadrant, ascendant and square, Saturn, unexpected changes going on, Jupiter, sesquiquadrant ascendant, Saturn square Mercury, frustration. This could affect commerce in United Kingdom. Jupiter square Saturn, Saturn sesquiquadrant Jupiter. Growth can be impacted negatively for a while. Jupiter semi-square midheaven, that affects rulership and royals. Jupiter sesquiquadrant Sun. Growth being affected in some way. On the good side, the lunar nodal axis trining Mercury, sextiling Venus. That will help out. Pluto trine Uranus, that is very strong. That is exact today. So that can help people in power and their the creative ingenuity of the country. Uranus sextile moon, that's kind of waning. Jupiter sextile moon, that's exact on the 10th. Right now, their luck is pretty good. Saturn sextile uh, Venus, that's going to be in effect mostly in May, but this has to do with turning visions into reality. So they may accomplish some good things in May, but there is some wounding going on with people with power and probably some problems with the economy. Okay, last thing I want to look at is Pope Francis. Interestingly, he was born with Sun opposite Chiron. So was Israel. This is in Israel's chart. And this opposition, at its best, when you integrate the two sides of this opposition, the transcendent nature of Chiron is combined with the self, the soul, and this person becomes a light unto the nations. And I don't agree with all of Pope Francis's decisions, particularly regarding women, but in a lot of other areas, he's been a very spiritual pope, and he has been a light unto the nations. Uh, when these two poles aren't integrated, that's when you get wounding going on. And it's interesting when Pope Francis was a young man around age 21, he had a severe case of pneumonia. Lasted, I think, throughout the year. He had to have most of one lung removed. He had a lot of cysts, a lot of health problems. And it was after this illness that his life changed. He was working as a chemist. They had, I think, the equivalent of a master's degree in chemistry. But after this illness, he became a Jesuit, and 10 years later, a priest. So this is the classic path of the wounded healer, the shaman. And that is what has happened in the life of Pope Francis. There was a healing crisis that changed his life and made him essentially a shaman, a wounded healer, and a light unto the nations. He has a lot of health problems now. Let me take another sip. Pope Francis is 87. He has a lot of health problems, even without difficulties in his horoscope. At his age, it's a question of how much longer he can last. And his horoscope doesn't look that good. If we look at the April 8th solar eclipse, Sun, Moon, Chiron, all at 19 degrees, 24 minutes of Aries, very strongly opposite his Mars. Uh, his uh, his physical health, his body is being impacted a lot. And this is also square his Sun Moon midpoint. So his physical health, again, he is being personally wounded by this eclipse. Transing Mars is sesquiquadrant. Uh, Natal Pluto. Uh, Pluto's in his first house. That is affecting him personally. Transing Pluto is semi-square his Saturn, uh, causing frustrations, limitations for him. Transiting Neptune is semi-square uh, natal moon. Uh, this could be things like pneumonia, for instance, viruses or infections impacting his personal health. Uh, on the good side, transing Sun, Moon, and Chiron is making a sextile to natal Chiron that can bring more of the healing in. Transing Jupiter is trine his natal Neptune. That can also be beneficial. and boost his health and his charisma. Transiting Neptune is trine his natal Pluto. Uh, so he still uh, has some vision and power here. Uh, let's see, did I also mention that this is opposite his Mercury Pluto midpoint? So uh, wounding may transform his life in some ways, affecting him personally. Okay, looking at transits throughout the lunar month. Chiron opposition Mars, that's exact on April 10th. Look for what wounding he has. Of lesser strength, but still impacting or transiting Pluto semi-square Saturn, Pluto squaring midheaven, Neptune squaring semi-square his moon, that's waning, but that affects health. Jupiter sesquiquadrate natal Jupiter affects his ability to grow, expand his luck. Saturn semi-sextile midheaven, his activities are being curtailed at this point. That's exact on the 14th. Ooh, transiting Saturn opposite natal Saturn. Let's see, did we mention that here? Let's see. Where is transiting Saturn during this eclipse? Right here. Yeah, that's getting closer to a conjunction with natal Saturn. It becomes exact on the 29th. So that could be a very serious time for him this whole lunar month. It gets within 1 degree orb shortly after the eclipse. Uh, exact on the 29th. This could put restrictions on him. Transiting Jupiter, semi-squares ascendant, that could affect his health. On the good side, transiting Chiron, sextile natal Chiron, that can bring healing energy to him throughout the entirety of April and May. It's exact on April 22nd. Transiting Neptune, trine his Pluto, that's exact on the 11th. Jupiter trine his Neptune is exact on the 8th. So there are some higher spiritual energies coming into him. That could be healing or vision. So it's a tough time for Pope Francis right now. There's some good things that happen. These are the tense aspects throughout the year. There's a lot of them. Given his advanced age, it could impact a lot. Pluto square his midheaven. That's in effect throughout most of this year. He might, even if he survives, he might have to step down from the papacy, from being pope. Might be unable to perform his duties. Neptune squaring his sun, that's was exact on February 5th. They'll come into play later in the year. Most of the stuff impacting him, it's going to be in these kind of summer months here. Chiron opposite Mars happens this lunar month, as does Saturn conjunct natal Saturn, but they repeat again in September 1st and November 25th. Saturn opposite Neptune. This will be a danger of infection from May through August. Saturn square Chiron doesn't become exact, but makes an influence in June and July. Things intensify with squares from transiting lunar nodal axis in June and July also. Jupiter squaring Saturn impacts his luck, causes frustrations in August and December. Jupiter squaring Neptune, dangers of infection in August, September, November. Jupiter conjunct his Chiron. This could work out favorably in September, October, November. So, again, given his current health, his advanced age, any of these transits could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. he might have to step back from his role as Pope. There will be restrictions, frustrations this year, wounding to his physical body, but Jupiter conjunct Chiron in September through November, that may uh, provide some healing to him. Let us hope so. On the good side, he's got Neptune trine Pluto throughout most of the year, Chiron sextile natal Chiron right now in April, May, and uh, later this year, around the same time when Jupiter is conjunct Chiron. So there may be improvements in his health later this year. Chiron trine North Node, Uranus sextile Pluto, the nodal axis sextile his Venus. That could be healing. Jupiter trine his Mars. Again, that's September, October, November, which looks like it'll be a more favorable time for him. That could help strengthen him physically. Let's see. Uh, he may step down from being Pope in this fall, but aside from that, there may be more healing for him if he endures throughout the rest of the year. So that is the end of the slideshow. And I hope that uh, Pope Francis endures as long as possible. If he can get back this current crisis, then there may be some healing or relief for him this fall. Okay, let me stop sharing. And let me get my image back here. There I am again. And that's going to be it for this lengthy exposition of how the solar eclipse will affect countries and people. Let me say goodbye for now, because this has been a long video. So I hope you all have a good year. This is going to be a very impactful year with a lot of wounding, but also a lot of healing. And for many people, a lot of spiritual transcendence. That's what you aim for. So for now, I'll just say so long and be well.